Where is there hope in this age of narcissism? Welcome to The Hub for Important Ideas. I'm Steve James.
And I'm Ken Swain.
In this episode, we talk about narcissism, the unexpected dangers it poses for our society, and possible antidotes that we believe have far-reaching potential.
We're going to play for you a conversation we had with Sheldon Solomon 2 weeks ago. We pulled this segment from what started as a sound check and turned into a long, casual conversation about several topics that we had on our minds. The more formal recording we'll have for you in the next podcast or two, but we like what was said here, so we thought we would share it.
So, to introduce Sheldon Solomon, Ph.D., is a social psychologist at Skidmore College. He is best known for co-developing terror management theory with Jeff Greenberg and Tom Pasinski, which is concerned with how humans deal with their own sense of mortality. He's the author or co-author of over 100 articles and several books, and has been featured in several films, television documentaries, and radio interviews. He co-authored the book The Worm at the Core on the role of death in life with Greenberg and Pasinski. He most recently appeared in the documentary Planet of the Humans. Here's the conversation with Dr. Solomon.
I think it's important that we talk about narcissism on a continuum and point out that it has a good side, a middle, and a bad side. Because everybody has a tendency to think narcissism, bad.
I don't disagree with that.
I just think it'll reframe the subject for people, and they might think about it differently.
We've been hearing about an epidemic of narcissism for a long time. I mean, 2009 at least.
Yeah, but by that we mean
Becker was talking about
Trumpian narcissism.
Well, Trump raised it to a new level.
He did.
Right. So all of a sudden it became this hot buzzword, you know.
Right.
And yeah, you're right. There's healthy narcissism and there's the narcissism of little children, and everybody has to take care of themselves to a certain degree, right? That's fine. But narcissism is, full-blown narcissism is a mental illness.
Yeah.
So it gets confusing when you talk about it on a continuum. Maybe we should give it a qualifier. Help us out, Sheldon. I mean, radical narcissism or really bad narcissism? What's the right term?
No, I think we're going to have to chew on this a bit. Like, go, Ken.
I've got a little bit of a narcissistic personality disorder. And I learned from spending $250,000 of my own money on therapy that it has to do with temperament, which is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about temperament. Because my temperament is like your temperament, which is not like my mom's temperament was at all. And I realized that at a very young age because I would meet someone else like myself, and they immediately got things about me that my own mother didn't get.
To me, it's really, I've been preoccupied with it since we talked on the phone.
Right.
And I think it's too huge. We have to sort it out. I don't have it yet because what we're, I think, converging on is that we need to figure out a way to convey what we mean by narcissism that acknowledges that it's natural, that it varies temperamentally,
right,
that it is not of necessity an abomination,
right,
but can readily become one.
Yes.
And is more likely to do so in certain historical moments in particular cultural contexts.
But could we use a term like self-centeredness, self-absorbed? There are other ways of talking about, arrogance. There are all these other ways of talking about narcissism without necessarily using that clinical term.
Yeah. Except that it's the one that's getting bandied about right now.
Right.
So we want to interface with it.
I know.
And here I'm going to have to do my homework because the Christopher Lash dude, have you ever heard that name? We're going to have to Google him. He wrote a book called The Culture of Narcissism.
I have heard of that book.
Yeah.
And this is in the, late 1970s, early 1980s. And Steve, this is in your fucking book. Reagan, we have to track this historically. You have to weigh in on this one in the sense that that's a lot of what your book is about.
Yeah. No, I know. But you're the only one who read it. Well, no, Dan Lichty read it. Okay. But that's two.
I read large parts of it.
Yeah.
No matter, the argument remains intact. And
no, it does. It does. The human mind makes connections and relationships even when they don't exist, right? But two things might be coincidental, but they happen around the same time, so you link them, right? So I don't know if I'm making linkages that make sense, and I need you to tell me, is this insane or is this intelligent?
Yeah.
So I'm linking narcissism.
Yep.
The article I was looking at was talking about modesty, the difference between modesty and humility, how humility can generate gratitude and gratitude can generate humility and create an upward spiral. And I'm going, holy shit, that's the most hopeful thing I've heard in decades.
Yeah.
A hopeful spiral. So now...
A hopeful spiral.
Spiral.
Is that from something?
Yeah, it's an article that I've got sitting in my bag.
So somebody else said hopeful spiral?
They said upward spiral. I said
hopeful spiral is a nice
but an upward
little
spiral.
couplet.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest we write that down.
And see, like what we've been wrestling,
Hopeful spiral.
what we've been wrestling with for, I'm going to say 43 years ago, I read The Denial of Death, and immediately then after read Escape from Evil, which is my favorite book.
Me too.
And no, really? I thought your favorite book was Birth and Death of Meaning.
Well, all right. I want to have it both ways.
Okay.
That's the good book on the psychology side of it.
But
yes,
right, that's true.
So that's
Good point.
why I want to have it both ways.
I was so drawn to chapters like with the title "What is Normal." What is normal? That like what you're asking, and one of the questions I want to ask in the future is, who gets to decide who's crazy?
Well, that's the whole gun control debate now. It's like who gets to decide who's.
Lang made the point that insanity is the sane response to an insane world.
Well, let me finish my thought. It was like you get to the end of Escape from Evil, and you're like, is this a viable species?
Yeah.
And okay, you've just gone through this incredible trip with Becker, where you're filled with misanthropy, right? I had absolutely no use for the human race at that point. I'm looking at the history of mankind. I'm going, oh, this is a freaking nightmare. And then you're looking at the present. You're going, well, this is a nightmare. And then you're looking at the future and you're saying there's no hope.
That's even worse.
Yeah, there's no hope because we're not going to change what people are about. And not only that, but our culture doesn't have the redeeming cosmic religious part that helped
kind of held it together for a lot of years.
So instead, as Becker pointed out, we don't have an adequate defense against death anxiety. We don't have adequate opportunities for heroism. We're all fucked up. And so you get to that and then you go, well, now what do I do with the rest of my life? And I'm in my 20s at this point. And I'm going, I
don't like this.
Yeah, I got to find out how to live knowing this.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we've all been wrestling with ever since we read these books. It's like, how do you live thinking that we're not a viable species? 5 years ago, when we're shooting in the hallway outside your office, Sheldon, and you turn to the wall, that graphic on the wall, and you started talking about this early experiment on humility and gratitude as a as a defense against death anxiety. He said, we're in early stages where I can't really say much yet because it hasn't really been verified or whatever, but, there's something to this. And I think I heard you talk about it in a presentation you made in Israel. Is that right?
Yeah, it could be.
Could have been. I don't know. But I haven't heard much about that. But it's been 5 years, so I'm assuming that a lot has happened in those 5 years.
No, not at all. So I'm being silly, but not, Steve. There was a promising piece of research.
Right.
I'm in my early Mr. Magoo phase. So
Yeah.
It was when you said, when you were there 5 years ago, I was like, 5 years?
Yeah, man.
How could that be?
Yeah.
So, but true enough, that's when I started getting interested in the gratitude and humility thing.
Right.
And it was in part at the interest of a young student. So the Skidmore student, she was interested in positive psychology and existential psychology.
Positive psychology being Seligman and
And
Seligman.
Yeah, and I think those guys are generally, fairly, they're decent people, but it's superficial at best.
And he also attacked terror management theory on the
I know I
New
wrote
York
to
Times.
him. Yeah, we agreed to disagree about that. But anyway, so I was like, what do you want to do? And she had been in the guy who teaches positive psychology at Skidmore, a guy named Mark Rye, is a great guy, and he studies gratitude.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, whatever, let's try it. So we did, our experiments couldn't be more simple. We did a gratitude salience induction. We just asked people to, reflect on a time that you were grateful for something and to think about what that was specifically, write down. And then that's followed by the usual death manipulation. So you're either primed to think about something that you're grateful for or not. And then you're either reminded of death or not. And then we do that little word stem completion task that measures non-conscious death thoughts.
Right.
Coffee as opposed to coffin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Skill
as opposed to skull.
Yeah. And so I was quite surprised when we found with a very small sample that just reflecting on something that you were grateful for, the participants who were grateful had lower death thought accessibility. And
so you had another group that was getting mortality salientized that didn't have gratitude?
Yes, right. But Ken, actually, that's a great point. Actually, the thing about it is this study was an anomaly of sorts because technically we predicted that the death reminder would matter, but it turns out that it didn't. We got what's called a main effect, and that is that the people who thought about being grateful, they had lower death thought accessibility in both the death condition as well as the other one.
Wow.
And what that suggests, you can't make anything of a single study.
Right.
But to just do what you can't, and that's to suppose that means something.
Right.
That could mean that gratitude is pretty potent shit, that it actually renders you more sublime than in a baseline condition.
Right.
All right. That finding, though, desperately needs to be
studied extensively.
Again. All right. Though the more compelling work is the humility end of things. Right. And this is one of Tom's students. And again, I'll stare at it when it comes time for us to be talking about this, because it's good to be precise. It's described in that handout.
Okay.
I think that I sent you guys. Maybe not, but basically they just found that Tom and one of his students, they did this, again, a humility induction, where they were careful to explain what humility is as opposed to self-deprecation.
Or modesty.
Yeah, modesty. That's
Modest.
right.
They're different. Yeah.
And so anyway, they do this humility induction. Then they do the death thing. And then they measure whether you piss on somebody who's different. And the people who were humble did not respond to the death reminder by denigrating someone who's different.
Right.
Now, she did like 4 other things that are variants of that notion,
Okay.
all interesting and all different, that basically converge on the idea that humility in the empirical sense appears to buffer existential anxieties as well as affirming your cultural worldview or bolstering self-esteem.
The article that I'm referencing, and I'm sorry I didn't send it to you, but I didn't have access to the electronic version. I don't even know if I have the electronic version. I think I scraped it off the internet, but I'll get it to you both, because this team of psychologists, I think it was like 3 people, they studied humility and gratitude, and they saw that humility and gratitude was an antidote to insomnia and stress.
Yeah.
They're looking at these maladies that it counteracts.
Yep.
And it makes perfect sense to me, because, like I said when we were talking on the phone, it's at the heart of Catholicism. I don't know if it's at the heart of Judaism or,
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's
But,
at the
yeah,
heart
I
of
think it is.
every...
Every religion
Yeah.
has that.
I can't speak for every
It's
religion.
kind of the golden rule in a
Yeah,
way.
it is.
But I know that was what the whole experience was for us as kids growing up with the nuns and the priests and all. It's like, be humble in the eyes of God, and be humble in this world that you found yourself in. Be grateful for your life, for being in this world. Understand that you're going to die. You're told you're going to die like every day, and you're going to go to heaven, and you're going to be blissfully happy for
Party. You're
eternity.
going to party with your dead relatives.
But you're not at the top of the food chain. You're number 2 or 3 behind God, the angels, and humans, right? So there's no reason for you to commit the cardinal sin of pride. Pride was defined as putting yourself above God or ahead of God. So that was like, you're destined for hell if you commit this cardinal sin. Here we find ourselves in this narcissistic society where narcissism is rewarded, revered. Every time you turn on the TV, you're either watching a reality TV show where people are just talking about themselves constantly. Goldie loves to watch Dancing with the Stars.
I hate that.
I like the dancing part, but you cringe.
I can't stand
when they start
my
talking.
God, somebody has to cry once an episode.
Yeah.
Yep.
Somebody's got to talk about how their parents
I mean, the skill is great. I do like that. I can't stand the sound, no.
Or an awards show where they walk up on the stage and they get handed the award, whatever. It's an award show every 3 weeks, right? Some kind of an award, Academy Awards, Emmy Awards, Oscars, Golden Globe. And it's always the same thing. They get up on the stage and they go, I, me, I'm gonna, I. And you just cringe hearing that. And you go, I can't process it. But yet at the same time, studies are being done showing that the more narcissistic your Facebook post, the more likes you get. So we're in this culture where we're being told it's good to be arrogant. It's good to be self-centered. It's good to think of your achievement, the wealth you're amassing because of these incredible talents that you have. And then the common good goes on the back burner.
It's very anti-Nietzsche.
What is?
Gratitude and compassion. He thought they were just weakness, and he thought that the people who march in and take what they want, those are the ones who he thought were the best.
Well,
I'm not saying Nietzsche.
Yeah,
I don't love Nietzsche. I mean, I I respect that a lot of people think he was the greatest philosopher after Plato,
Yeah.
but he makes it hard to have a good day sometimes.
I'm looking for links, looking for connections. All of these things now are like in a jumble. I'm saying narcissism linked to self-esteem. On the outside, they look the same. On the inside, they're completely different. You can be narcissist with low self-esteem.
Yeah, narcissists, they do have low
self-esteem.
implicit self-esteem.
Implicit, exactly. Yeah.
So, one way of thinking about it that is, I think, comprehensible and also empirically defensible is that the narcissist is a legend in his own mind,
right?
Scores unbelievably high on self-esteem measures and unbelievably low on measures of implicit or unconscious self-esteem. So on the one hand, you give them a self-esteem scale. They're like, I'm the best, fuck the rest. But these implicit things, it has to do with reaction times, how rapidly you associate like first-person pronouns with negative adjectives.
Wow.
It shows that the Karen Horneys of the world are right when they insist that narcissistic self-inflation is a manifestation of extraordinary lack of self-regard.
That's so counterintuitive.
It is.
So is grandiosity, which is another characteristic of narcissists.
Arrogance.
They tend to...
So arrogance, vindictiveness, and grandiosity.
And lack of empathy.
Yeah.
Vindictiveness. Yeah. So you're in this Becker world. You're looking at the culture that you're in. You surround the society that you're in. You've basically lost faith in humanity. You're dealing with this awful, negative view of the world and life. And yet you're saying to yourself, but this is vitally important. If everyone understood this, we'd have a better world. And I've always believed that from the very beginning. I said, everybody should know these things. We would have a better life. But yet, deep inside, you're going, how do I even begin to get people interested or aware of these ideas?
Yeah.
When negative doesn't even describe what they do to people. But for the first time in all this time, when you brought up this humility and gratitude, and I'm starting to link and say, okay, as it was antimatter to narcissism, this is the most hopeful message I've heard in decades. Ken and I we're like giddy at this point because we're saying if self-esteem and heroism are the primary defenses against death anxiety, and you have a society that's stingy about your self-esteem and your heroism, your opportunities for heroism, and the only people with really strong self-esteem are the billionaire class and the politicians with power and the models who are beautiful. And you say, well, where does that leave the rest of us? Where does that leave the mass of humanity?
And then the final chapter of the guy's great book says, I don't know if humanity is a viable form of life.
Yeah.
I mean, good luck completing this sale.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, you had me for a minute there, but is this what you got?
Exactly.
You're going to go Jeff Greenberg on my ass?
Yeah. Oh, it's all about death. And you go, well, it's not all about death exactly. It's all about death denial.
You've already lost them.
Don't even bother.
You've already lost them.
But if you say, let's think about a society that's built around humility and generosity or gratitude, think about what that would look like. That would be like the nuns that taught me in school, like the priests who took a vow of poverty. They took vows of chastity and obedience, okay, but they took vows of poverty, meaning they renounced what we as a society most revere. Goldie and I were over a friend's house the other night, and he was saying, well, I made it. I'm a millionaire now. And he brought out his Fidelity statement, and he's showing us.
You're kidding me.
No, and I'm not kidding. And he's made $1 million in the stock market. And he's saying, so here I'm at. And I'm like, this is amazing to me.
I also got rid of that hemorrhoid. You want me to show you?
I know. And I'm thinking, well, I'm happy for him. And I'm saying, well, congratulations.
What a crass thing.
That's not. No, it's not.
It's extremely crass.
No, it's the culture that we're in.
Well,
that's what he's supposed to think.
Even if you think it, it's kind of.
I know.
And then to pull out your bank statement as if.
Yeah.
Look at my bank statement.
No, well, he was trying to explain to us that we should be doing what he did. Forget mutual funds and put your money into stocks. I mean, it was an interest. I mean, he was trying to be helpful, but I'm just saying that this is the society we're in, where Jeff Bezos is this hero because he's got the most money, and we talked about Warren Buffett, pushing 90. He's going to be 90 this month, I think.
Still goes to work every day.
Still goes to work every day.
But see, but I'm fond of him.
I know.
Yeah,
me too.
Because I think here's where it gets interesting. We need to have discussions because he's on the one hand committed to generating wealth while being militantly devoted at the same time to only wealth that's produced by people who do stuff. And I give him some credit for that. He's given away most of his money. I give him credit for that. And he didn't give his kids much in the way of money. They got more than we have.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's as these people go.
As those people go, he's a good one. And Bill Gates is giving away most of his money, but he was a dick on the way up.
Exactly. It still begs the question of, and I think it's a legitimate one in this historical moment, in what kind of psychotic universe is it ever legit or even commendable for single organisms to command that much of Earth? It's
like we said in our podcast.
Yeah.
If you spend $1,000 an hour, 24 hours a day, it will take you 114 years to spend $1 billion.
Yes.
1 billion.
And Bezos has 143 billion.
Right.
Well, no, that's honestly, it's quite psychotic.
It's crazy.
I said it was perverse. I don't know. But I think that we're looking at what we were talking before the microphones turned on was linking narcissism with the four chi, contemporary heroism initiative for the people who don't know what chi is. The four main issues: mental health, economic inequality, environment, and war, right? We're always looking at mental health as the adverse consequences of not having enough self-esteem or opportunities for heroism in the culture. So depression, stress, addiction, all of those maladies we looked at as consequence. But now we're talking about narcissism, which is a mental health issue, which may be the result of the culture in some ways, or it may be the result of being mistreated as a child, being raised by a sociopath the way Trump was. But you're looking at narcissism also as a reason for these issues.
As you just pointed out with social media.
Yes.
Yeah.
It feeds into itself.
Yeah, there are multipliers. So just like the hopeful spiral,
right,
you were alluding to earlier.
Yes.
This is the malignant
downward spiral.
Yeah.
So
and that's a nice metaphor because they're each spiraling.
Yes.
at accelerating rates in opposite directions.
And we've got an epidemic of narcissisms, particularly among millennials, that's being tracked with these studies. And they're saying narcissism is on the rise in the younger generations. How can it not be when you're told every day that you're supposed to be a narcissist to succeed in this world?
Yeah.
That's the messages you're being told. So I'm looking at this from the chi perspective, going, well, wait a minute. Your multiplier is a good term, but I'm thinking causation of the narcissism in the individual, the collective narcissism, generating economic inequality. Am I wrong there? Does that make sense? Like, I'm making these connections in my head with no data to support it. No.
It's called intuition.
Maybe.
You're intuiting it.
I'm an INTJ or something like that. When you,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, given my egghead background, we would take a look. I mean, it's honestly, it's a legit and credible hypothesis.
Right. Yes.
It's and you actually framed it, the way you would egghead Lee.
Egghead Lee.
No, and that's to your credit. You're saying
okay.
You're positing a counterintuitive,
right,
causal,
yes,
connection, basically saying a case could be made that malignant narcissism underlies, animates, amplifies, and therefore is ultimately responsible in a very central way for all of our original
existential
areas of inquiry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, because what we're saying is, in my mind, narcissism's annoying. You see these articles, well, you don't want to date a narcissist because these things are going to happen if you date a narcissist. And they're very charming. Narcissists are they're very charming and they're very attractive and blah, blah, blah. But then when you really get into a relationship with them, they cause you all these problems. Okay, fine. But economic inequality is a danger to your health.
Yeah.
It's a danger to our form of government. It's a danger to the middle class way of life. Barzun is saying we're going to have a society of oligarchs and peasants, and there won't be a middle class to speak of. Forget democracy. And
I heard a great new word, kleptocrat.
Kleptocrat. I've heard that
So
too.
both of the parties are kleptocratic.
Yes.
Isn't that great?
That's wonderful because it's accurate, isn't
Yeah.
it? So you're saying, okay, narcissism, it's annoying. But then you say, wait a minute, if narcissism is at the heart of economic inequality, it's dangerous. It's destructive. Then you say, well, what about the environment? Well, the environment's linked directly to economic inequality. And the environment is linked to narcissism because the narcissist says, I care about quarterly profits. And if you got to burn down a rainforest to get me my quarterly numbers,
so be it.
So be it. And
Right.
if the next generation has to handle it, so be it. There's no empathy there.
I don't think they even think about the next
No.
generation. That statement would never even happen.
So again, there's no empathy. You really don't care about the consequences of your actions. So you say, okay, so there's this narcissistic society that's spinning the world out of control from economic inequality and the environment. And then you look at war. And that's where this collective narcissism hit me. I had never heard the term before you sent us that article, Sheldon. But when you think about collective narcissism and war, holy shit. It's all about collective narcissism. We're superior. Our in-group is superior. Oh, our in-group feels put upon by those towel heads over there. So
smote them.
Yeah. Smite them. Take their oil while we're at it because we deserve it. And you say, well, it's a direct outgrowth of this society, this secular society we've created. But at the same time, you say, but would a humble society attack the Middle East this way? Would a grateful society attack these other people? I suspect not.
Probably not.
No.
Let's hope you don't get so humble that if people come riding into your thing, like you need to be able to kick some ass if you need to kick some ass.
Yeah.
You got to be careful here.
I'm saying that there's a difference between hegemony and survival, to use Noam Chomsky's terms, okay?
Okay.
And survival, yes, obviously, you've got to defend yourself if you're concerned about this hostile world that you find yourself in. But hegemony is a whole different trip. That's about controlling the world. Control the uncontrollable. That's Becker 101 right there. You want to control the uncontrollable. So our defense budget, like 80% goes to hegemony and 20% goes to survival. You've got this collective narcissism that's driving our decision to try to dominate 1.5 billion Muslims. It can't be done. It's insane. But that's what we're attempting. And it's not just us, because it's Europe and certainly the Western world. But the Muslims are thinking the exact same thing. They're going, well, yeah, you've got nukes, but we've got God. We've got Allah on our side. And you're just secular infidels. And we've got the truth. We've got the Quran. And you go, come on, folks, this is the 21st century. I thought we would have put this behind us by now, but we obviously haven't. But if I think about humility and gratitude as an antidote, well, then I would think the Muslims would embrace that. The Christians would embrace that. These born-again Christians, the humanists would embrace it.
You got to be pretty much of a dick to not embrace humility and gratitude.
I think Dick Cheney would laugh you out of the room.
Yeah,
Cheney's a dick. I rest my case.
No, come on. The entire Trump administration.
Dicks.
There's no humility. There's no
Dicks.
gratitude.
Rest my case.
Yeah, but you're talking about 60 million people voted for this phony game show host who purported to be a brilliant businessman and all that. I don't want to get into Trump, but I'm just saying that he's like the poster child for narcissism.
Here's the thing that continues to bug me. While I was cleaning today, I was listening to the story of electricity, its invention. A couple of years back, I watched an HBO series called The Men Who Made America.
Right.
Because it sounded like it would be uplifting. These guys didn't have any intention of making America.
No, they're making themselves.
They were trying to get over. They were trying to be the big swinging dick in the fight, and they would do the most horrible things. America got made sort of as a byproduct, unintentionally. Same thing with electricity. Edison was pushing for this DC current, and he had to build like a power station every half mile in order to be able to make it work. Yeah. But he wouldn't let go of that. Even after, and Westinghouse is in there going, it's got to be alternating current. We can Tesla's the one who finally cracks through. Yeah. But they were going head to head. There was no...
and Edison was ready to take your legs off.
Oh, he did the most horrible thing. He wanted to show how their power is so dangerous. So they got this elephant. It's the most horrifying public relations stunt in the history of history. Because they're trying to electrocute this poor elephant with this giant voltage, and it takes them like over an hour to do it.
Oh, my God.
And they're doing it on camera. Oh, you're watching them torture this thing. And this is so this guy can prove his point that this is dangerous. It didn't even turn out to seem that dangerous. If it takes an hour to kill an elephant, I think you'd probably be okay after a quick spark. But the point being that what has driven us forward a lot in this society is pretty miserable shit being done by not such admirable people. It's not always, and this was something Cousin Dave, he understood completely.
Dave lived in the dark side.
Dave was very comfortable with the dark side.
Yeah.
Look at the art on the walls in the room you're going to sleep in tonight, Sheldon. It's all samurai warriors getting ready to dispense with someone with their samurai sword.
Wow.
In a ritualistic fashion. Or there's also some nudes, sex.
What Dan Lichty wrote in remember the listserv? We had those emails, you know.
Yeah, I seem to remember that.
He talked about balancing self and the common good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And boy, that just hit me really hard. And I wrote about that, saying every society, every one of us has to balance.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
Selfish need and the common good.
Yeah.
And our society's out of balance.
Yeah.
It's tilted in one direction. The North Koreans are tilted all the way over in the other direction.
Yeah. No, that's, I think that's a great general statement that has the virtue of being true.
Dan put it beautifully. And I think that our society is out of balance. We're tilted all the way over into now what we're calling narcissism or selfishness or self-centeredness or self-obsession, whatever it is, and less to the common good. Now, when you say, well, Warren Buffett gives all this money to charity, sure, absolutely. There's all kinds of opportunities for doing important things for the common good. But if you do them without money, you're a loser. It's okay if you've got lots of money. And then, like Rockefeller, you know, you build a museum and you build the Cloisters Museum, and then you buy the Palisades across the river, so you've got a view.
So you have a good view.
Good view from the.
That's the way those guys think.
But
that's thinking big.
But they did think in terms of the common good. The robber barons were all about building libraries and, you know, testaments to themselves, legacies, and this kind of thing. These, I don't know, these billionaires, you don't see a lot of that kind of philanthropy. Yeah, you know they're doing it for tax purposes, but it's not the same kind of thing that, well, I don't mean the past is the past, but the common good, it plays a role, but unless you're Mother Teresa and you're famous and your focus is the common good, but you're not making money, you're a loser. You took a vow of poverty as a priest. Well, you know, good for you. You know,
right.
It's like,
idiot.
Yeah. In New York, it's, well, why haven't I heard of you? If you're so wonderful, why aren't you famous? It's this whole attitude that you're supposed to be something. You're supposed to be this, like Jeff Bezos. You're supposed to aspire to that. And that just fuels this narcissism that is, I think, that's killing us. If you come back and say, but what about humility and gratitude, they say, well, I can buy that. If you can fake sincerity, the rest is easy.
Ew, I don't like that one.
But this is the first time I have felt genuinely hopeful. And I might be getting way, way ahead of ourselves here.
No, I've got the same experience when we were talking to him. It's because this is something I really feel like I could get behind and make something happen with.
I don't know what I would make happen, but
then what are we doing here?
No, I know. I mean, I want to talk about it and explore it, and then
it's an idea that I can see people getting interested in and not getting as turned off as they did by Becker and TMT, because it's got a potential upside.
Yes.
If it's really true what we're saying here, and it sounds like it is from the experiments that Sheldon just described about gratitude being an antidote for subsequently induced mortality salience, and then testing it on the far side, proving that the gratitude had an impact. Theoretically, as he says, we got to test it more. But that seems worthwhile, and if it's true, now people can do something. That's something that, like you said, is built into the religions. People already have a sense of how to do that.
I'm amazed that they're not saying, look, don't take the sleeping pill, embrace humility and gratitude to cure your insomnia.
I didn't even know about that.
Why go through years of analysis when you can reduce your depression or your stress by embracing humility and gratitude?
Well, that's what the positive psych people would.
Right. Yes.
So in that sense, they have a point taken.
Right.
And at its best, that's where the mindfulness people.
The what?
The mindfulness.
Mindfulness,
movement.
Right.
Mike, these are interrelated constructs, and I would argue phenomenological experiences. Because I think if you're grateful and humble, it draws your attention to different things. And that lends itself more to a state of mind will ideally foster a completely different set of values and behaviors.
Right.
Possibly a better society.
I don't see grateful, humble people invading Iraq on the pretext of weapons of mass destruction. I don't see them burning down rainforests so they can make their quarterly numbers. I don't see them doing anything that Dick Cheney did for a living or that Trump is doing now. And I just feel like there's something to this that makes a lot of sense to me. And I wish I understood more of it. I wish there was more data.
Let's try getting that going. There's something we could help out with.
Right. When we did the Conversations with Solomon interviews with Jeff and Tom, and I brought up emotional intelligence, and Jeff was like, does anybody know what this shit is? And
Jeff hit you over the head with a hammer.
Yeah. And Sheldon was saying, yeah, it's such and such without attribution. And I'm going, yeah, okay. From your standpoint, I can understand how you might not be crazy about Daniel Goleman, but I thought emotional intelligence was a very important.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah. I think Jeff was pissing on it, and maybe I was also, just because it's been floating around. The idea has been there for some time.
And it was co-opted by HR departments.
Exactly.
And it was not,
like all good ideas.
And it's not hard science, it's soft science.
Yes, that too.
No, I mean, there's good evidence.
I raised my kids to be emotionally intelligent. I read that book and I said, this is what I want my kids to be. I want them to grow up to be emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
They will be happy.
Yeah.
They'll be healthy. They'll make livings. They'll know how to make a living.
Yeah. It's precisely what's not measured on the Scholastic Aptitude Test.
There's
not a single question on there about how to get along with another person.
That's a good point. Yeah. This idea that you're proud of your children. I'm not proud. I basically got out of the way and let them grow up. Pride, they're not my report card.
Yeah. No, I am proud of my kids, but it doesn't reflect on me at all.
Oh, that's different.
I had good kids in spite of me.
Because,
yeah.
What makes me beam is when people come up and they're like, your kids are decent people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like beaming.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. We rang the bell.
I'm happy for them.
In my parents and their parents in particular generation, they would have said that children are in the world to be useful to their parents. No, that's really what they believe.
Well, that's the agriculture,
that's the
agrarian
right.
culture, yeah.
And in that Scott Peck book I'm always ranting about, he says that the complete opposite is true. Parents are in the world to be useful to their children.
Yes.
I mean, you only have to think about it with half a brain cell to realize that that's right. If you're going to have children and you're going to try to make them into the best human beings, you're there to be useful to them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not the reverse. But it's not what a lot of people want to hear.
The other hopeful notion, theory, whatever, was flow. And you turned me on to flow.
Flow is huge.
It's huge. And I experience it all the time.
I do too, at certain times.
We can
recording a
get.
song.
I doubt the Flo guy. I don't know if he's upright, but Flo is
yeah.
the
McCallie,
same.
Mikhail Chinamizvitsky.
But I
Yeah.
know his people. That's the same school that Gene Lippman Blumen's at. So you definitely want to
Yeah.
get a Flo person.
That's positive.
Yeah,
That's
that-
positive psychology too.
Yeah.
That's
at
another
its
topic
best.
to make a note of.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that's the most vibrant part
Right.
of positive psychology.
Yeah.
Because I looked at flow as an antidote to death anxiety.
It is.
Yeah. Very effective. And again, I'm looking for hopeful possibilities.
Yeah.
Humility and gratitude. You were taught as a Catholic to believe how humble you're supposed to be.
I have one idea. It's a Joseph Campbellism that I want to say, because this isn't completely new, what you're saying.
Yeah.
There were cultures where the men would go out on the hunt, and when they came back victorious, the leader had the privilege
Of giving
away
Yes.
the best parts
Yes.
of the kill, often eating a terrible piece
eating the
himself. That's the same message.
Yeah, isn't it?
The best part of bringing it home is
Yes.
sharing it with the other citizens.
Which
I like
is
that.
inconceivable.
Inconceivable
in our
now.
society. Yes.
But there are a lot of nice, quiet people who've been living this way right along. They're still
millions.
They're still in the society,
Tens of millions.
and they're just not affected by this outside stuff that much. They just keep their head down. They keep going on. They know what's right. They would say, I know what's right. I know how to live my life.
Right.
I've got cards from people that were sent to Cousin Dave. I've been going to that church for 15 years, and I'm not even sure who they are.
Yeah.
But they sent beautiful drawings, and
Right.
send Ken. The cards just flooded in here when he passed.
Oh.
Ken, thank you for bringing Dave to the church. He
That
was
guy
such
that
a-
brought, what did he bring, soup that day?
Yeah, Larry from the choir. He's
Yeah.
like, here's some soup.
Yeah.
We miss Dave, and thanks for introducing him to us. And
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah. It may sound corny.
Oh,
but
it is corny.
That's
but,
the locus of hope.
But it's good.
I
I like that feeling. It's a feeling of community.
Yeah. So I'm stuck on that. Did we talk about this?
Yes.
The original.
Yes.
Religion means to bind,
Yes.
and
Is that true?
yeah, the
word?
original derivation, it comes from a Latin word, regatear or something, and it means to bind. And the dead Durkheim, French sociologist, his point is that religion originated long before gods, and likely long before we were consciously aware of death. And its original function was a socially binding one. And he calls it effervescence, that a collective effervescence, that
Wow.
we needed some way to express our just utter joy and stupefaction at the prospect of being alive, and that it could only be done in a communal setting.
That's gratitude. That's the other definition of gratitude that is missing, because when you say gratitude, they go, well, who are you grateful to? What gift, what Christmas gift are you grateful
Right.
for? And you're saying, no,
That's not what we're talking
it's
about.
gratitude. Grateful
The
for
the
being
other kind of
alive.
gratitude.
Right. And so everything else is subsequent to that literal, unbridled, awesome joy.
Right.
And
taking God out of the equation.
right, because it wasn't there to begin with.
Yeah.
So it was all about people in the early days.
It's not an essential element. Although the religious people will say it is, and that's fine. But it's not necessary to be humble and grateful.
No.
To have God in the picture.
I agree. You're on to something.
You've been listening to a conversation with Dr. Sheldon Solomon.
We've known Sheldon since 2002.
Yes, I was just a young lad at the time.
Yeah, right. Thanks. And, the three of us have been friends and associates ever since.
We used to refer to him as our rabbi if we needed help with our various projects.
Oh, yeah. And he has been very generous with his time and thoughts, and this meeting was no exception. And if you're wondering what Sheldon is like when he's not being interviewed in a movie or on TV, he's exactly the same.
He is a great guy.
He's complex and deep.
Right? And a truly genuine human being. You know, when you talk to him, it suddenly occurs how far ahead of you he is. So every once in a while, he'll let something slip that you just find yourself staring into the deep. But he never makes you feel that way. He's truly a great teacher in that respect.
I always feel embarrassed when he says, "And have you read so-and-so?" And I'm like, I should just say to him, "Look, Sheldon, I haven't read anything that you've read, so let's don't even go there."
Right.
But it's like
he can go through a list of books about any subject. There's almost nothing he hasn't read.
He's so well read. But anyway.
He's an academic. It's his job.
Well, okay, sure. But he probably reads like 10,000 words a second the number of books that he's... Let's go on.
Probably.
So if I could boil down what we were getting at in our conversation, it's that narcissism, this epidemic of narcissism that we find ourselves in, especially collective narcissism, which is a new term we've just learned, narcissism poses a danger to our society. We find it at the heart of several existential threats, like economic inequality, climate chaos, and war, just to name three. We have said in the past that our culture's failure to provide adequate defense against death anxiety causes numerous problems for all of us. Narcissism is both an inadequate defense and a multiplier of many social ills. So in looking for hope in what we consider a very challenging time, we discovered something that had been right under our noses for 5 years: humility and gratitude as possible antidotes to narcissism and alternatives to our culture's poor defenses against death anxiety.
We say possible because much more research needs to be done, but the early studies are very promising. Humility and gratitude, notions found in all the great religions, are philosophical concepts with great potential for what ails our society.
They are narcissism antimatter. I like that.
You like that phrase.
Why.
That's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. I like it, and we certainly need that. So we're going to explore these themes in future podcasts. All are important ideas.
Amen. Join us next time. Like us on Facebook. Please recommend us to your friends. You can find us at www.thehubforimportantideas.com.
And support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Hub Important Ideas. We are 100% listener supported.
Thank you for listening to The Hub for Important Ideas. I'm Steve James.
And I'm Ken Swain.
Stay safe, everybody.
Stay well.